Hi everyone, this is Mindy Egan for Concord and Ninth. Thanks for joining me today. I am introducing to you the Pumpkin Patch Turnabout Stamp. Concord and Ninth has done it again with another amazing fall-themed turnabout filled with pumpkins and foliage. And on the back, of course, you have some inspiration to get you started. Now, in each turnabout, you are going to receive your guide. That's going to help align your turnabout properly so that each turn will match up in its correct orientation. There are so many color possibilities that you can use with your turnabouts. I always like to start with a tone-on-tone. So this is wheat cardstock where I stamped each turn in the color wheat. This next one I did in nectar, clementine, fig, and lilac. I love to experiment with different color combinations. This one happens to be sorbet, sunflower, blueberry, and harbor. This one has more of a fall theme, so we have cayenne, sunflower, avocado, and nutmeg. And then my last card example here, or card front example, is a little different, where I went through each turn stamping it in white pigment ink onto wheat cardstock, cleaned it all off, and then went back and added color using stardust, avocado, harbor, and cayenne. I'm going to stamp this out for you in another color combination, which actually happens to be one of my favorite ones that I did. I'm going to start with Pebble ink, and I'm also going to be walking you through a few things to help you with your turnabout. Sometimes when we're teaching turnabouts and we want to screw up, we don't. So in this case, I did have a couple things that I didn't do quite right. It still works out, but I want to point them out. Maybe that will help you troubleshoot if you are ever having problems with your turnabout. Now to start with, I do have some white cardstock measuring 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I have that placed on my Turnabout Jig. I started with that number 1 in the top right-hand corner. After I stamped that in Pebble ink, I cleaned off the stamp, and I like to pat it dry with my hand so that my stamp isn't wet when I go to apply my next color of ink. I did turn my jig so it has the number 2 in that top right corner, and now I'm inking it up with pink lemonade. Now, one of the things I want to point out about this is if you are using a jig and your MISTI stamping tool, make sure you always have your jig tucked down in that bottom left-hand corner. If at any point in your turns you don't, it may shift your design just a little bit. I think in my case, I did have it off or I didn't check it at one point. Now, it's not super noticeable, but because I stamped it so many times before this, I noticed it. But I do want to point that out to always make sure that that is tucked into the bottom left-hand corner of your jig. Now, my second color I'm coming in is, I believe this one is wheat. And then I'm going to do nutmeg. Now, another thing I want to point out is sometimes when we have our stamp on our MISTI door, you're going to see an air bubble. So right there I point out I have an air bubble, which means it's pushing that part of the stamp up and picking up that ink. I'm going to grab a rag and just carefully wipe that away. If I would have noticed this before I even started stamping, I would have carefully lifted up that part of the stamp to release that air bubble. But since I didn't catch it right away, I didn't want to mess anything up right now. So I just had to be a little careful and wipe the ink away. Now the same color combination I used on my card front, and I actually die cut that large heart, which is from Just Say More. And then I added a sentiment strip down in the bottom there. That is from the Celebration Squad stamp set. Another card I created with the Turnabout is doing die cut window over the front of it. So for this one, I used that oval frame from Friendly Florals. I have the big hugs from Just Say More. And the color combination I believe I used for that one is Pebble, Stardust, Tide Pool, and Peacock. So I hope those little tidbits help you when you are using your turnabout. There's also an introduction to the turnabout on the Concord and Ninth channel. That is a closer look at the Pumpkin Patch Turnabout Stamp.